What's up, guys? It's your boy Dalton here, bringing you another deck profile. I'm bringing you my water deck profile here. Took me a while to get the monsters and spells kind of worked out. Spells probably need a little bit of your own touch, honestly. But, this is what I feel works the best for me. So let's kind of get right into it. Buddy, we're going to be running the frog, we call him here, TCG Buzz. Basically, because when you call him, you could throw in 2 Skull Warriors or water monsters from your deck into your drop zone, which fuels the main size 2 of the deck. Great, buddy. It's size 0. You can't argue with the size 0, buddy. You really can't, because you can always call it. Leading off with 3s. Got Heavenly, fully equipped Kannon. The best size 3 for the deck. Like, you can't argue anything else with it. Basically able to make your center monster's size reduced by 2, and its counter of gaining gauge in a life is amazing. It also has Penetrating Soul Guard. You don't care for its Soul Guard too much, so that's why you have different things that can get rid of its Soul Guard to do different things. And then we run 1 copy of Inverse Omni Lord Ziun, mainly for that finishing aspect for crit, and basically his attack can't be nullified. It's fairly scary. Whenever we finally get, if we ever get the new version of Ziun, that will replace this, but that day may never come. We never know. But that wraps up size 3s. For size 2s, the main reason why this deck exists, we have the Deity of Misty Dew. Ooh, just amazing. Nanase. A 6/2/6. Has 2 souls for 2 gauge, and then when this is destroyed, you get to destroy a monster in your opponent's field, drop 1 of their gauge, and you gain a gauge all at the same time. It has double attack as well. It's amazing, especially when you can jump it up to an 8/8. It's fairly scary, and quite easily the best walling card out there outside for Athora, because Prism Dragons are Prism Dragons. You can't argue Prism Dragons. Next, we run 2 Cat Shadows. You only really need 2. You only run 1 set spell anyway. But really, you use it so you can get out the set spell, and so you can basically boost this up. Nothing too special besides that. It is 1 life instead of gauge, which is nice because this deck does use a lot of gauge, but it also gains a lot of gauge, so it's all good. And lastly, we run Inverse 3rd Omni Lord Miserea. For that life gain, because life is amazing in this deck. The more life you can get, and especially the fact that it's also a water, so you can search it out without having to use the Omnilorn emblem, and the fact that it can be bumped up to an 8/7, which is quite scary as well. And you'll easily have spells in your job to get this card out. It's just another wall until you can get this card out if you see this first, but you'll always see this. You'll always see Nanase. It's for the size 2s. Size 1s, we only run 1. Run 2 copies of the female ninja. For the fact that she countered during your opponent's main phase, you can put into the drop zone and pay a gauge and nullify a spell cast that they do. So you say you're facing, I don't know, mirror match where they're trying to use Hiding Oni, and you're like, well, no, I don't like that. You can stop that Hiding Oni so they can't get any bonuses off of it, or if they cast a spell that requires a lot of life or a gauge, you can just stop it right there. Be like, no, stop it. You played yourself. You played yourself. Off to the size 0s. Obviously, 4 of the Buddy. Buddy, you have to run 4 of it. Next card, you can run 4 or 3. Doesn't really matter because you got to run the first Omni Beast Messenger. Basically reduce the gauge cost of your cards coming in. So basically knocking him down to 3, him down to 1, her down to 1. Like, you can't argue with the fact of getting that going for yourself. It's a great card, especially since it's Skull Warrior. We have a way to call it out from the drop anyway, and also grab it from the drop too with another spell. So there's a few ways to get it out of the drop if it ends up in your drop, or if your opponent keeps destroying it on you. you have ways of bringing it back. So hence why you probably only need 3, but I run 4 just for consistency's sakes. Next, we're going to kind of break it down into a few different engines here for the spells. So we're going to start off with like the nullify / defensive cards here. Shadow Stitching, the best nullify in Katana world. Pay gauge, nullify the attack, and then choose an attacking monster, and it can't stand for the rest of the turn. Well, that kind of gives it hard to Thunder Empire. You can stop a lot of their plays, so especially if you know they're about to try to go for their impact, you can be like, yeah, no. You're still going to have to try to pay like 10 gauge or 9 gauge in order to cast it. Next, we run 3 Blazing Armors, with the fact that most of the time your card in the center is going to have like 8,000 defense or so forth. Giving an additional 5,000 really makes it hard for your opponent to get over. Even bots has some troubles getting over it. And also being able to deal 1 damage is a nice little burn on there as well. Next, you got to run Snake Gaze. I only run 2 just for the fact of there is another card out there that can rest cards that I'm also running in this deck. But definitely, it depends on your matchups. So you definitely sideboard, put 2 in sideboard so you can sideboard more in. And same thing with its Skill Binder. It's basically both resting cards, once for a life, once for a gauge. Basically, it depends on your matchup. So you can run more of this if it's a heavy penetrate deck or a double attacking deck. Or if it's just so you can also hit items. This one just in case your opponent doesn't run any double attackers, or if they have triple attackers, so it basically skips over double attack and doesn't have any penetrate, so you have to go with the OG. That wraps up defensive. Next, we got to get into the agua of the deck, the water spells. You have to run 4 Fresh Blood Nectar. This is your searcher for water, so you can search out the Miserea, you can search out every water monster in the deck. It's a 4 of staple. You have to run 4 of it. It makes the deck that much more consistent. You basically have twice as many copies as every card in the deck because of this card. And same thing with the next one. Just kind of works a little bit better. You have to run Water Ploy. 4 of it. Basically, when a monster is destroyed, you can put a water monster from your drop zone of any size into your hand, or 1 or less monster from your drop zone. So this is a way to get the messenger out to if it's in your drop zone, or if your opponent destroyed it, you're like, well, I'm going to use this and just bring it back to my hand so I still can go at you pretty hard. Must have staple at 4. Next, I only run 3 of the Water Technique set spell. Mainly, it's a +2/+2. Can't argue with +2/+2. Honestly, in my opinion, it creates a lot of bad matchups for people. It's just they don't like to deal with it as much. We go into the draw engine. Run 3 Hiding Onis, just because with the size 3, you don't care too much about his soul. So you want to get rid of it so you can get pluses in your hand, gaining a gauge and drawing 2. Phenomenal. I would only run it at 3. It'd be too much at 4, especially with the next card that we have here. We run 2 Demon Way, a Sasuke Executioner draw spell. We'll just call it that. Basically paying engage, milling the top 2 cards so you can fuel it for the size 2. And also being able to draw 2 cards potentially if you have 10 or more cards in your job, which is quite easy. I have pulled off many things where I go with this, and then I go with this, and then I have all the cards in the drop to make sure I draw 4 basically that turn. That's it for the draw engine. And lastly, the basically Monster Reborn, the returning from the underworld card, basically the Resurrector for Executioners and Skull Warriors. Since basically most of the deck is Skull Warriors except for like 2 cards, you can always call them back. And the fact that you can gain so much gauge, you can always pay 2 gauge to grab it from your drop zone and put it back into your hand during your main phase. And just call back the size 0 so you can call this size 2 again, or so forth and so on. That wraps up the deck here. I hope you enjoyed. I'm having a lot of fun with the deck. It's amazing. I can't argue with it. It gives Christian a lot of trouble, especially with him trying to playtest with this Thunder Empire Fang deck. It really changes the meta up here for TCG Buzz because so far not too many people can beat it. It's really like game 3 just because I'm being nice with them. But yeah, that basically wraps it up. Make sure to leave a like on this video. Comment what you think you would do differently, or if you just have more questions about the deck. Subscribe if you haven't. Hit the bell to get the notifications, though. And above all else, stay classy, y'all.